Dear listeners, in this episode of Book Talk, we mention a few words and phrases which I'd like to explain for your uninterrupted enjoyment of the podcast. Human revolution is a process by which we consciously make an effort to elevate our inner state of life, building on our hope and courage to establish an unshakable happiness as we are and where we are. Josei Toda was Ikeda's mentor in life. Sensei is Japanese for teacher, and we use it here to refer to Daisaku Ikeda. The future division refers to the children. Thank you and happy listening. Hello and welcome to Book Talk. I'm Hideko and I'm joined by my friends Shweta and Trisha. Today we are discussing the books of my youth. In this book, Daisaku Ikeda shares his detailed thoughts on 17 great works of literature that he read in his youth. Books that profoundly influenced his thinking and way of life. A prolific writer and peace activist himself, Daisaku Ikeda reflects on what these works meant to him at different stages of his life. We are reading the books of my youth for inspiration, for the values we wish to adopt and live by. All three of us are avid readers, and this book provides a wonderful gateway into some of our favorite classics and others that we hope to read someday. I'll now invite Trisha to begin with The Divine Comedy by Dante.
The Divine Comedy is written by Dante Alighieri, and Ikeda begins by highlighting the similarities between Dante and Nichiren Daishonin, and particularly the fact that both experienced exile because of their convictions and beliefs. The structures of the Divine Comedy itself resonate strongly with our Buddhist practice. Dante begins his journey lost in darkness, moving through hell. Sensei draws attention to this because Dante does not begin from a place of clarity. He begins from confusion. Much like many of us, this aligns closely with the Buddhist view of life. We do not start from a clear state of mind. We often start from suffering, doubt, and struggle, which makes us seek Buddhahood and the mystic law. And as we keep going, practicing, studying, and learning, we get closer to the light of Buddhism, which is there in our hearts from the very start. So Dante continues forward just as we must. And the direction of this poem is always upward and forward towards joy and freedom. That is my understanding of Sensei's reading of the Divine Comedy.
In the Divine Comedy, Dante, the protagonist, is lost in a dark forest where he encounters a mentor figure who shows him the way out. How would you connect this to your own life?
I find this deeply connected to how we are guided by our mentor in faith. Our mentor helps us make sense of what we are experiencing. And I joined this practice when I was 5 years old, and I had many questions. And as I began reading my mentor, Daisaku Ikeda's books, things gradually became clearer. This clarity guided my choices, particularly in my self-education and self-development. And my mentor always emphasized self-education as being more important than formal schooling. And my mentor showed me that path. In that sense, he truly led me out of a dark forest of oblivion.
What I find especially powerful is that Ikeda does not romanticize suffering. Dante never escapes pain, he understands it. This is very close to Nichiren Daishonin, viewed hardship, not as punishment, but as mission. Emerson himself lived this principle. He left the church when he felt religion had become ritualistic rather than lived. This choice cost him status and security, but it preserved his integrity. Ikeda saw a strong parallel with Josei Toda, who challenged empty authority out of compassion, not arrogance. Faith for him had to empower people.
Speaking of Emerson's philosophy of self-reliance, Ikeda writes that the philosophy which we choose to practice should draw forth the positive powers of our life. It should help us manifest our limitless potential.
When Ikeda read Emerson's words, trust thyself, they were not motivational slogans, they were a warning against unhappiness. To trust oneself means taking responsibility for one's happiness, integrity, and courage. He presents Emerson not just as a thinker, but as a person of action, someone who spoke against slavery, and injustice, even when it was unpopular. His legacy is not about self importance, but about self honesty. So this chapter challenges us to ask, are we living in alignment with what we believe, or are we quietly adjusting our beliefs for convenience? It is an uncomfortable, necessary question that we should ask ourselves.
The Eternal City by Hall is another book that Ikeda discusses. And in this chapter, he again emphasizes the need to stand by our convictions, to do what we believe is right. The protagonist of The Eternal City, David Rossi, is a young revolutionary striving to overthrow tyranny and create a society where people can live out their full potential. Ikeda highlights that the driving force behind Rossi's actions are friendship and integrity. Rossi's closest friend and comrade remains steadfast even in prison, and his sacrifice strengthens Rossi's resolve to continue striving toward their shared goal. Ikeda also notes that his mentor Josei Toda read this book when he was around 30 years old, at a time when he and his mentor Sunesaburo Makiguchi both were imprisoned, in fact, for standing up for humanistic values during World War II. Even after his release, when many abandoned his mentor, Toda remained steadfast in his loyalty. Ikeda suggests that the friendship depicted in The Eternal City gave Toda the strength to embody such unwavering commitment. We too need to cultivate a revolutionary spirit in our own lives because we are not mere bystanders. We are active contributors and builders of our own destiny.
Toda really cherished this book, The Eternal City, and read it many times and also encouraged Ikeda to read it. I think when we truly love a book so much, we internalize what the book teaches and that influences the choices we naturally end up making in the future. I truly feel that through the spirit of this book, Toda and then Ikeda have built for us the eternal city, rather the eternal world where we get to practice this wonderful philosophy of the Daishonin. And we are awakened to the mystic truth, or the mystic law as we call it.
The three of us are readers, yet I'm sure that we haven't all read the 17 titles mentioned in this book. Many people are also daunted by classic literature, often because the texts feel dense and difficult. Ikeda's perspective, on the other hand, helps us see the deeply humanistic angles of these books. He first read an abridged Japanese translation of The Eternal City. The translator, wary of controversy, deliberately softened the book's revolutionary themes. Had Ikeda simply gone by the translator's introduction, he might have read the book as merely an interesting story. But his mentor Josei Toda taught him to read it in a way that would enrich his life. So Ikeda read this book asking himself, how can I be this kind of friend and disciple to my mentor? Toda often asks the youth, what are you reading right now? And he would then ask them what they thought about it. He discouraged shallow reading, such as skimming through the book to get to the exciting parts. Rather, he taught them to read books as a blueprint for their lives. Through the books of my youth, Ikeda shares this incredible wealth of wisdom drawn from his readings of classic literature. Was there anything in the books of my youth that surprised you, an angle or an interpretation that you had never thought of before?
After reading the books of my youth, I've learned that reading, as much as it is delightful for ourselves, it can also be more meaningful and value creating if it's done in a group. When you read in a group, it actually generates dialogue, and then human revolution happens collectively from what we learn from discussions and choose to implement in our lives.
Yes, as an amateur gardener, I particularly enjoyed the chapter on Rousseau's Emile, where Ikeda highlights the importance of raising children in harmony with nature. He writes that nature is both father and mother and an excellent teacher of humanity. This struck me deeply in the context of today's environmental crisis. Nature is often seen as separate from human life. We tend to think that there is progress and technology, and then there is nature, which is completely different. But Ikeda reminds us that we are born of nature. It's not machines that gave birth to us. So to damage nature is to damage life itself. On one level, this sounds like common sense, but when we look at the state of affairs in the world, it's clearly not. Most people are so busy just living their daily lives that they don't have the time to give to this topic of environmental damage.
In the same chapter, that is Rousseau's Emile, there is something very important that I learned, So, our practice is about ridding humanity of suffering. And I've always wondered what it really means to do that and how to do it. But one line here makes it really clear that rather than being overly protective of the child, Rousseau wants Emile to freely explore the natural world. He believes that even getting hurt while exploring and discovering the surroundings is an invaluable learning experience for the children. So, to let suffer while we empower them with encouragement is what it truly means to save from suffering. Like you can't and shouldn't come in between the person and the adversity because that is coming from the universe and it is an opportunity for them to grow, which you should not take away. So, this particular learning, I found it to be very helpful.
That's a beautiful takeaway that even though we love people, we can't always save them. We can only help them manifest their ability to overcome their own challenges, and we owe it to them. If we love them, we owe it to them to give them the means to live their lives in the best possible way. Because compassion too can turn controlling. If you're trying very hard to save somebody from making mistakes and they're not listening to you, it can also turn into a battle of egos. You know they're making mistakes, but you can't live their life for them. But you can be a good, steadfast friend, which has been a theme across different chapters of the books of my youth. And I think that reading books together, such as this one, is a big aspect of being a good friend because we're not preaching at anybody. All of this philosophy, we are thinking together, how can we implement it in our own unique ways?
So, all across the 4 chapters that we talked about, Daisaku Ikeda teaches that books alone do not change us, dialogue does.
And that is why we are here today, engaging in shared reflection through dialogue. It almost feels like a modern day equivalent of Ikeda's reading circle with his young friends. Another point that I think is worth highlighting is that most of the writers discussed in this book face criticism and persecution from authorities, yet remain steadfast because their philosophy was rooted in compassion for people. It reminds me of the Buddhist concept of the 8 winds. A wise person is not swayed by the winds of either censure or praise. By always standing with the people, these thinkers and doers found the strength to endure persecutions. A key learning for us, I think, is to avoid becoming self centered, even though modern life often encourages it. Nichiren Buddhism is a practice for both oneself and others, and that is Buddhism in action, which gives us strength. We work on ourselves and together build eternal cities of happiness for all.
I'd like to share 2 lines Emerson cherished from his mother. And the 2 lines are first, lift your aims, and second, do what you are afraid to do. These lines echo Ikeda's encouragement to the future division to dream big. He always told them to have dreams so huge that they would seem impossible. But as Soka youth, that is exactly what we do. We make the impossible possible. I think these 2 lines have stuck with me from this read, and this is what I determined to do going forward.
We will close today's book talk with the dream that it encourages many people, especially the youth, to seek great works of literature and to read the books of my youth. With the hope that many people will enjoy listening to our book talk, we take our leave of you. Thank you very much and see you soon again.